Sarah, Hagar, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. The stories of our foremothers are filled with remembrances of the challenges, sometimes life-threatening, that they faced in conceiving and giving birth. The story of Moses, his mother Yocheved, his sister Miriam, along with Bitya, Pharaoh's daughter who raised him, brings this theme to dramatic heights in the Exodus narratives. The drama of their lives centered around their role as mothers of an emerging clan, a family to become a nation, built on the foundation of their very abilities to bear children and to nurture the next generation. Anita Diamond's extraordinary book-long midrash, The Red Tent, recalled the women of these early generations of our people. What an honor these women conferred upon all of us. Our foremothers knew of the challenges of pregnancy for all women and the dangers of childbirth for many. Losing a pregnancy that was a sad and tragic event, and even more so, the loss of little ones in infancy, and both were relatively common before the modern period. Now, we are living in a time when pregnancy and women's agency over her body are being challenged in ways that our ancestors could never have imagined. We are living through a distressing political environment that casts women's experiences of birth control, pregnancy, childbirth, and women's health care in rigid Christian fundamentalist religious terms. Many among us, women here, may find ourselves thinking of our own pregnancy and childbirth experiences. I was blessed to bring 3 babies into this world, but if I had not had emergency cesarean sections for the first 2 and a planned C-section for the 3rd, I would have died. I'm reminded of the principle in Jewish law, which is based on the value that the life of the mother takes precedence over those who are unborn, according to Jewish law. Back in the early 1990s, when I was leading a congregation in southwestern Michigan, I was honored to serve as president of Planned Parenthood of southwestern Michigan in Benton Harbor. During that time, our neighboring affiliate in Kalamazoo, the one where abortions were performed, was bombed. We knew there was potential for violence and that our task was to build a robust network of support to help them to secure their facilities and ours. We were there to help women and to keep them safe. But even then, it never occurred to us that the right to an abortion would ever possibly be taken from us, that women would lose agency over their bodies in 21st century America. It was unimaginable that the forces of right-wing religious extremism would ascend to the highest court in the land and take away such a fundamental freedom. I am sure that there are women among us today who may have chosen abortion and endured the fear and sadness that comes with that loss. This isn't typically something we share with others outside of our closest circles of friends and family, if that. Yet I imagine that many of us know friends or family who needed and received abortion. I remember a family member who was born into a religious Catholic family, asking my mother to help her get an abortion since it was understood that she could not tell her family of origin. I know this was a very difficult choice, but for her, it was necessary given her life circumstances. I remember a close friend who in graduate school became pregnant unexpectedly and felt the need to go for an abortion so she could complete her studies and be ready for when she would start a family. It was a mournful time for her. At least she had bodily autonomy and the legal right to make this choice, as did other friends and family who made the same very difficult and painful decision. This is the time of year for us to remember and refresh our commitment to the values given to us through our Jewish tradition. So what does Judaism have to say about abortion? Two colleagues writing a column entitled Abortion and Reproductive Justice, a Jewish Perspective, offered a succinct and powerful summary of the Jewish issues around abortion right. The first tidbit is illustrative. They wrote, a study by the Pew Research Center found that 83% of American Jews say that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. American Jews' widespread support for permissive abortion laws finds grounding in Jewish tradition and its approach to pregnancy and its end. In the Torah, we learn first about the termination of a pregnancy in Parashat Mishpatim, in the book of Exodus, our tradition's earliest guidance on the termination of a pregnancy. We read, when individuals fight and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact. Of course, this is the time of the Bible. Go with it. The payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. This teaching has been understood for countless generations to teach that a woman has the full status of a person, a nephesh, a soul, while the fetus, though valued, has a lesser status as a potential life. And the eye for eye part we'll say for another time. In the next stage of Jewish thought, in the Mishnah, the teaching goes further. We are taught that if a woman's life is threatened in childbirth, the fetus in her womb can be destroyed if it means that is the only way to save her life. We, the Jewish people, are committed to the value of life as a primary gift from God. And yet the sages describe what must happen if necessary. It says, quote, taking it out limb from limb, for her life comes before the fetus's life. The mother's life takes precedence over the unborn, which is a potential life. While later commentaries debate the implications of this text, particularly the breadth or narrowness of the definition of a threat, still, no matter how the teaching may be understood, in the end, Judaism nonetheless allows for abortion or even requires it to save the mother's life. While the fetus is certainly recognized as having the potential to become human, its potential for life is only realized after birth, even up to the first month after it is born. We are told by some of the halachic authorities, which became normative, though there's debate in our sources, as there is about everything else, but you know, we are told that up to that first month, to the 31st day, you don't say Kaddish if the baby dies. This is to ensure that the time that the baby needs to survive out of the womb is realized. Rashi, the great 12th century commentator on the Bible and Talmud, speaks of the fetus in this way. The fetus is lav nefeshu. It's not a person. The Talmud refers to the fetus as ubar yerachimo. The fetus is as the thigh of the mother. The fetus is considered to be part of the pregnant woman's body. The political landscape in which abortion debate is located today evokes confusion and consternation in its use of language. What does it mean to choose life, as our tradition commands? In the book of Deuteronomy, we read, I call heaven and earth as witnesses. I place before you this day life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life, that you and your descendants may live. These words have been co-opted by those with a different view of what it means to choose life. The slogans of the, quote, pro-life, unquote, movement, held aloft in posters and pasted as bumper stickers, are intended to direct women who face the most painful and personal choices in their lives to bring their pregnancies to term, to bear children even when it threatens their lives. Judaism is unequivocally pro-life in that we value both actualized and potential lives. But the sages of this generation have steered us far away from using that term in a political environment where pro-life has come to mean anti-abortion. This negates the complexity and power of Jewish law. Alongside that, it sets us apart without the right to make decisions about pregnancy based on the teachings of our own religious tradition. Since Judaism allows for abortion under some circumstances, we are called to advocate for civil laws that protect a woman's right to choose, to access birth control and abortion services when needed. While politically, quote, pro-life advocates say they are standing up for life, the pro-life movement has become so extreme as to be clouded with constant threats of violence. The pro-life movement has not only usurped a biblical term that means something quite different in our tradition, it has also cast aspersions on the medical professionals who help women in tragically difficult circumstances when abortions are needed. The violence, such as that at our Michigan Planned Parenthood and many other places, serves to create broader chasms between the two sides, and it's tearing our country apart. I heard the pain in a story told to me by my friend and colleague, Rabbi Michael Feshbach, whom I mentioned yesterday also. He wrote, quote, I have seen the murderous hand and bone-chilling hate of the so-called pro-life movement up close. I have seen real blood spilled by those who are filled with righteous rage and absolute certainty that God is on their side. He went on to tell this story. The phone rang late on a Friday night years ago in Buffalo. His wife answered the phone. And then he says, she handed it to me with a look of great concern. It was a Shomer Shabbat conservative rabbi at the shul down the street. Rabbi Feshbach, my friend, is a Reform rabbi. And Julie, his wife, knew that he wouldn't be calling unless it was a real emergency. He says, I took the phone and heard my colleague tell me, one of your congregants has just been shot. I stepped out and heard the helicopters, blades chopping the air and lights roaming the street. It would be years before the murderer was caught. But even as I was walking the few short black blocks to the Slepian home, I knew it was a moment which would change our lives. Barnett Slepian was an OB-GYN shot through a window in his home after Shabbat services. And he was a fertility specialist. He loved bringing babies into the world. He often explored alternative options with patients about abortion. His work in saving women's lives by terminating pregnancies never exceeded 2% of his practice. And all the large font headlines managed to say about him was, abortion doctor killed. Rabbi Feshbach went on, a few days later I took another call. This one came after all the religious school assemblies comforting kids whose classmates had lost a father, helping them make sense of what was going on. It came after a funeral, pushing past throngs, turning beet red from screaming, spitting, shaking in fury, and holding signs saying he got what he deserved. It came after the cameras went away and the celebrity politicians who came for Shiva went back home, and when the community began to take stock of who it was and what came next. The call was from a young woman who identified herself as a member of the local Catholic Church. And she wanted to know about the Jewish position on abortion. She seemed sincere, with no apparent rage or rancor. He realized then, he says, I was being asked a question of Torah. And he concluded by saying, and then I remembered that I was a rabbi. As Judaism holds that abortion is permitted or even commanded if the fetus poses a threat to the mother, there is certainly subjectivity in how this is applied. Some rabbinic authorities will say that abortion is permitted even in cases of lesser injury. This may include the impact on older children of a continued pregnancy, or the emotional state and psychological factors of the mother, especially given the possibly difficult diagnoses from prenatal tests, as well as conception arising from coercion. For the Jewish community, the protection of access to abortion has also been understood under the First Amendment's Free Exercise of Religion Clause. With Jewish views regarding the permissibility of abortion in certain circumstances, a law that limits a woman's right to choose limits a woman's ability to make a decision in accordance with her religious beliefs. In fact, since Judaism understands these issues differently, it can be a powerful antidote to the pervasive sense that religious voices are only to be found on one side of this debate. In Jewish life, circumstances count. This means that difficult decisions in tragic times must be made by a woman with her healthcare providers, and especially with the support of her moral and spiritual tradition. A woman in distress would do well to consult her rabbi once she has consulted her physician. Let's be clear, this is not just about religious freedom, though as Jews we know this is a fundamental right that we must strive to preserve. Even more, with Roe gone, women will die. The implications of Dobbs are staggering. What then can we do? We can support organizations such as Planned Parenthood, NARAL, National Council for Jewish Women, which hosts a website called JewsForAbortionAccess.org. We may be called upon for other forms of assistance, such as aid in transportation across state lines, support for clinics under fire, even advocacy to preserve medical education and training in specific procedures. What does it mean to choose life? This is to command us to care about and for each other. Today's America is starkly different from the one in which those of my generation grew up. There are two vastly different visions and sets of values before us now, and the stakes are very high. Life and death, blessing and curse. Let us not stand idly by as women will die. This is our moment for action. May this new year, filled with memories of ancient family stories where life and death, childbirth and loss are retold, remind us of what is possible. We can help to repair our broken world with a passionate call for justice and true religious freedom in America. May no more violent acts of protest by anti-choice activists succeed, and may no more women die, so that respect for women's bodily agency and religious freedom will be restored and preserved. May this be a year for a new America for American Jews. L'Shana Tova. We turn now to page 141 for the Musaf service. Deb, can you please open the ark for us for a moment? Thank you. I missed a few of them yesterday. Thank you. Thank you. We stand. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מסוד חכמים ונבונים, ומלמד דת מבינים, הבטחתי בתפילה ובתחנונים, לחלות ולחנן פני מלך, מלכי המלכים ואדוני האדונים. Thank you. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וחוטפנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה מתים אתה.